And now that we have the base for our branching, let's make this look like actual lightning. And the first thing that I want to do is maybe set the P scale for the size of the branching and drop down a attribute randomize. Set this to be P scale. And maybe I will just make this a one dimension, and let's have a value from 0.4 to 1. And also here I can set the global scale, so I can just increase the scale now. And we'll have to go back to this later after we add the noise as well. Let's also randomize this direction a little bit, and let's make some room. And let's drop down an attribute VOP. Rename this to randomize n. Let's step inside and let's grab this n and plug this back to the n. And I want to add to this n attribute a little bit of randomness. So from the ptnum I can generate a random, set this to 3D vector output, and let's fit this from 0 to 1 to -1 and 1. And now all we have to do is let's mix these two values now. Drop down a mix here and plug this into my second input. And I want to promote this bias. And also I want to normalize this vector. And now if I go up, I can decrease this bias. We can see that we have the original movement. And by controlling this value, we can adjust exactly how much of a difference in the angles we want. One other thing that I can do here is we can see that these lightnings that are created over here towards the end of our main branch really have too high of a P scale, and I kind of want to fade these out towards the ends and maybe towards the beginning of the branches. Or maybe not so much towards the beginning, but definitely towards the end. We have on our main edges a curve view attribute that was generated by the resample, and we can grab this curve view attribute and transfer it to our points again by using the same premuv functions. So the same way that we grab the position attribute from the curves, we can also grab the curve view as well. So I will just copy all of this and paste this here, and instead of creating the variable pose, let's create a variable float curve. And instead of looking for our P, we want to look for the curve view attribute. So after we set the P scale with the attribute randomize, let's drop down another attribute VOP and do some changes for our scale. And let's preview maybe the final result. So inside here, this attribute VOP can be renamed to adjust P scale. Let's step inside and drop down bind, and let's import this curve that we created earlier. And actually I just realized now that let's go back up to this attribute wrangle, which I will actually rename to premuv. So let's go back here, and we store this into a float variable, but since we want to use this later down the chain, we should create an attribute instead. So I will say that at curve equals this premuv function, and now we have an attribute for our points, so we can actually use it inside this attribute VOP. So let's go back inside. So now this will work, and let's plug this into a ramp. Let's turn this into a spline, and let's make some room here, and I will duplicate this and also grab the P scale, and I simply want to multiply the P scale by this ramp. And I can do a bind export, and we will export this back to the P scale. And now if I go up and reset the ramp, we see that we have this nice tapering of the branching here, and we can adjust this ramp now to however we see fit. And I will turn these handles into a B-spline as usual and create some adjustments. So we can see with and without this node, we can really control the look of this lightning. Okay, so maybe let's adjust these in the back as well, or rather in the beginning, and we can create some more points here, and we can see that we can make these branches here in the beginning a little bit smaller as well. All right. So now from this copy to points over here, we can drop down a resample, And let's keep it consistent with the other lining and set the length to 0.01. Also generate a curve view attribute, and we will actually just grab one of these noises, maybe this one, and duplicate this over here and plug this here. And let's go inside, and we won't be needing the H multiplier for this, so just grab both of these nodes and delete, and all of these should be fine. Let's go back up and let's preview this noise. So we also have that upwards motion with the height. Let's go inside and let's get rid of these two nodes as well, and maybe rearrange this a little bit. So now we are only affecting the noise. And let's go back up and let's increase the frequency and just decrease the amplitude so we can kind of see what's happening here. Let's maybe preview these both at the same time. Okay, and I think these are a little bit too big towards the end still. Let's go to our adjust P scale and maybe make some further adjustments here. Okay, so something like this. So back to our noise. I will maybe increase the roughness a little bit and increase the amplitude. And I'll leave you to play with these settings to get a result that looks good to you. So maybe also grab one of these, this small noise, and let's place this over here as well. Okay, and I'll leave the settings as it is because it will be consistent this way, so the branching with the main lining.